She's back in the White House. But this time, it's different. Melania Trump, now once again the First Lady of the United States, isn't staying silent anymore. After years of carefully controlled public appearances and cryptic remarks, she's finally pulling back the curtain in ways no one expected. In a candid interview with The Five on Fox News, Melania opens up about her new memoir and promises to reveal everything. But what exactly does she mean by everything? From jaw-dropping controversies to surprising insights about Donald Trump himself, her fresh revelations have ignited a firestorm among fans, critics, and political insiders alike. Stay tuned to uncover the untold story behind the woman who knows the president better than anyone else. Melania says it's time. But what is she really telling us? The former model turned First Lady has stepped back into the political spotlight beside Donald Trump. But something feels different. This time, Melania isn't quietly standing behind her husband. She's stepping forward using her own voice, sharing her own message, and releasing a book that's turning heads. Just weeks before the election, she gave a Fox News interview, speaking with unusual clarity about personal freedoms. She emphasized her belief in individual choice and the importance of keeping government out of private decisions, especially those concerning women's bodies. The timing was striking. As her husband faced criticism over his stance on reproductive rights, Melania's words sent ripples through both political camps. And she didn't stop there. In her memoir, she reinforced her views, insisting that women must be able to make choices about motherhood without external pressure or government interference. This wasn't just a personal opinion. It felt like a statement, a challenge, a calculated move. So what's really going on here? Is Melania trying to appeal to moderate voters? Is she carving out her own legacy, distinct from Donald's? Or is this a subtle act of defiance from a woman who has long played her cards close? From contradictions to quiet power plays, from whispers of rebellion to the untold truth behind their political and personal partnership, this is the story Melania just opened up. Melania versus Trump. A house divided? For years, Melania was seen as the picture of loyalty, calm, poised, and always a few careful steps behind her husband. She rarely spoke out on policy, and when she did, it was measured, diplomatic, and usually aligned with her husband's broader message. But not this time. The rules seem to have changed. During a Fox and Friends interview, Melania reflected on her first term, suggesting she had always been true to herself, even if the public hadn't accepted or understood her. She mentioned feeling unsupported and framed the potential new term as exciting, filled with plans and purpose. That didn't sound like a polite nod to the future. It sounded like a promise. Or maybe a warning. Then came her memoir. With it, Melania sent shockwaves through the Republican Party. Her bold views on abortion, personal freedom, and government control weren't subtle. They directly contradicted her husband's campaign stance. Donald Trump's stance is clear. He has long backed restricting abortion access, supporting strict state laws, conservative judges, and labeling Roe v. Wade a mistake. This position has earned him strong support from the far right. But Melania's message is different. In her book and media appearances, she frames abortion as a matter of personal rights and freedom from government control, speaking confidently about autonomy and choice. That sharp contrast raises an unavoidable question. If she disagrees with him here, what other issues might they differ on? Her tone feels unscripted, her timing intentional. Just weeks before the election, she shares deeply personal and politically charged views that clash with the party platform, and then dismisses the backlash by insisting everyone should have the right to decide for themselves. So, is this bold independence? A quiet act of rebellion? Or is it part of a larger strategy, a carefully crafted message aimed at women voters uncertain about Donald Trump? Whatever the reason, this is not the Melania of 2016 or 2020. This is someone stepping out from behind the scenes, making it clear she's her own person, and she doesn't need Donald's permission to speak her mind, Or maybe she does have his blessing. Maybe it's all part of a bigger plan to soften his image. Strategically. We're not inside their private life, but we are watching closely. And now, more than ever, it's hard to separate the personal from the political, especially when you're married to one of the most controversial presidents in history. So is Melania just telling her truth? Or is she subtly sending a message about him? Before diving deeper into the real meaning behind Melania Trump's recent revelations, let's revisit some of her most talked-about moments from recent years. Melania's statement in the Rose Garden. There's no better symbol of Melania Trump's time in the White House than her redesign of the Rose Garden. Sleek, minimalist, and polarizing. Previous versions of the garden boasted bursts of color and lush, sprawling rose bushes. Melania's redesign, however, featured sharp, controlled lines and a muted color scheme. It was precise. It was cold. It was purposeful. Critics took notice immediately. Many accused her of wiping away decades of history. A prominent presidential historian publicly criticized the makeover, arguing that the changes erased layers of American heritage. Rumors spread that she had removed rose bushes planted by former first ladies, though fact-checkers later debunked that claim. Eventually, brighter flowers were added back in, but symbolically, the damage had already been done. When Jill Biden became First Lady, efforts were quickly launched to restore the garden to what many considered its traditional, softer look, a symbol of American elegance. But Melania's silent messaging didn't stop there. The jacket that spoke volumes. It was June 2018, and the nation was tense. Reports flooded in about children being separated from their parents at the southern border due to the Trump administration's zero-tolerance immigration policy. One detention center, holding just 55 children, many ripped from their families, was preparing for a high-profile visit from the First Lady. Melania Trump stepped out of her motorcade to tour the facility. But it wasn't her visit that captured headlines. It was what she wore getting on and off the plane. An olive green Zara jacket costing just $49 with a bold white message stamped across the back. "I really don't care, do you?" The reaction was swift and intense. Critics exploded. Supporters scrambled. The internet went wild. Some called it careless. Others saw it as a calculated move. Was it a jab at the press? A tone-deaf insult to the kids in the center? Or something else entirely? The White House quickly jumped in to clarify. The president claimed the message was directed at the media. Melania's team insisted it was just a jacket with no hidden meaning. But later, Melania gave her own explanation, which contradicted both. She said the jacket was meant for her critics, those who attacked her relentlessly. It wasn't about the children, she explained. It was about standing strong against public shaming. But instead of calming the controversy, her words only fueled it further. Especially because of what she wore during the interview, filmed on a safari in Kenya. She appeared in a crisp white shirt and a colonial-style pith helmet, an image that sparked a fresh firestorm. The helmet, widely recognized as a symbol of European imperialism, drew sharp criticism from African historians and advocacy groups. 2 outfits, 2 global scandals. Yet Melania never backed down. If clothing was a statement, hers said this. She wasn't bothered by the backlash. Sometimes it seemed like she welcomed it. And this willingness to provoke wasn't new. Before the jacket, before the garden redesign, before the memoir, Melania made headlines in another way, one that struck at the core of presidential politics. Melania's speech scandal, a First Lady's copy-paste disaster. It was 2016. The Republican National Convention was underway, and all eyes were on Melania Trump as she took the stage. This was her big moment, her official political debut. Cameras flashed, the crowd cheered, and Melania, dressed in white, delivered what many thought was a heartfelt speech about values, hard work, and the American dream. But by the next morning, applause had turned into accusations. Rumors spread like wildfire. Parts of Melania's speech sounded eerily familiar. Too familiar. Sharp-eyed viewers and reporters quickly noticed entire sections mirrored Michelle Obama's address at the 2008 Democratic National Convention, almost word for word. One passage in particular caught the nation's attention. Melania spoke about wanting kids across America to know that their dreams and determination are the only limits to their success. It was a message almost identical to Michelle Obama's, down to the cadence and tone. It was undeniable. The internet exploded. Side-by-side video comparisons flooded social media. Memes went viral. Late-night talk shows made it a major topic. At first, the Trump campaign stuck to the usual playbook: deny, deflect, and blame political rivals. Paul Manafort, then campaign manager, insisted there was no plagiarism and called the outrage a fabricated smear. But behind closed doors, Melania knew something had gone wrong. In her 2025 memoir, she finally confronted the controversy directly. She admitted drawing inspiration from Michelle Obama's speech, but insisted the similarities were unintentional. According to Melania, the blame fell on her campaign speechwriters, who she felt didn't properly review the draft before she took the stage. Reflecting back, she expressed regret for placing so much trust in others during such a critical moment. The scandal didn't die down quickly. It lingered, not just because of the plagiarism itself, but because it raised bigger questions. Was Melania truly stepping out as herself, or was she just playing a role scripted for her? That question hasn't gone away. In fact, it's gotten louder, especially now, as Melania returns to the White House for a second term as First Lady, with the nation watching her every move, every word, and even every silence. But this time, the public wants more than rehearsed speeches. They want answers, and some want them fast, especially about a name that keeps popping up online: Jeffrey Epstein. Suddenly, people aren't just scrutinizing Melania's fashion choices or past controversies. They're demanding she break her silence on something far darker: Melania's Be Best backlash. For someone who rarely seeks the spotlight, Melania Trump has a knack for stirring strong reactions whenever she does appear. She moves quietly, careful, calculated, and often far from the cameras. But when she speaks, people listen. They lean in, eyebrows raised, eager to analyze every word, every pause, every possible motive behind her calm, measured tone. That's exactly what happened in early July 2025. After months out of the public eye, Melania re-emerged with a carefully crafted Instagram post praising a newly passed housing initiative aimed at supporting America's foster youth. It was a quiet celebration of progress, funding secured for vulnerable children, and a continuation of her Be Best program, first launched during her husband's original White House term. Originally focused on children's well-being, online safety, and opioid prevention, the initiative had always been seen as well-intentioned but somewhat vague. Critics mocked the irony of Melania, married to one of the most aggressive social media users in history, leading a campaign against cyberbullying. When the program shifted awkwardly to Fostering the Future, designed to help foster kids transition to adulthood, many viewed it as just another superficial rebranding. But Melania pushed on. In her post, she thanked lawmakers who supported the bill and framed the moment as a win for children in need. The graphics were sleek. The caption was concise. On the surface, it was the kind of feel-good message that usually gets a few nods and scrolls. But this time it sparked something else entirely. Almost immediately, the comments section blew up. What should have been a quiet policy victory turned into a battleground. Critics, trolls, political skeptics, and even former supporters flooded her with demands, not about foster care or funding, but with a far heavier accusation. They wanted answers about Jeffrey Epstein. Time and again, commenters demanded the release of sealed files and documents tied to the late convicted sex offender. It wasn't just the sheer volume, it was the intensity. Melania's polite tone and charitable message crashed headlong into a tidal wave of suspicion and outrage. The polished surface of her post cracked under the weight of the internet's fury. Some even dragged up old controversies from her past, like that infamous Zara jacket from 2018 with the phrase, "I really don't care, do you?" which was suddenly back in the spotlight. Others took aim at her Be Best brand, twisting it into sarcastic jabs and pointed barbs. The message was loud and clear. No amount of soft colors or philanthropic talk could distract from the tough questions the public was now demanding she address. Beneath the backlash was a deeper layer of frustration. While Melania largely stayed out of political battles, her husband was right in the thick of it. Donald Trump, still one of the most polarizing figures of our time, had once again found himself at the center of controversy as pressure grew to release records connected to Jeffrey Epstein. Even some of his most devoted MAGA supporters were beginning to feel uneasy and frustrated over what they saw as his reluctance to take action. Now, Melania was being dragged into the storm. Things didn't help when, just weeks earlier, a leaked insider remark attributed to Melania seemed to throw Ivanka Trump and Jared Kushner under the bus. Though she didn't name names, the vague yet pointed comment fueled speculation about tensions within the Trump family. The carefully maintained image of a united front was starting to unravel, fast. But despite the public criticism, Melania stayed silent. No responses to comments, no clarifications, no official statements. Just the same polished persona, calm, graceful, distant. Yet her silence only fueled more suspicion. Critics say her composed exterior is a shield, that behind the elegance lies avoidance, deflection, maybe even fear. Her supporters argue she's misunderstood. But one thing is clear across the board. The scrutiny has never been more intense. Because this isn't just about a housing bill anymore. It's not even just about Epstein. It's about what Melania knows, and how far she's willing to go to keep that knowledge under wraps. Every move she makes now carries extra weight. Every glance, every post, every pause is dissected like a clue. And with mounting pressure surrounding her husband and the names tied to Epstein's circle, people are starting to ask uncomfortable questions. Questions Melania might not want to answer. But the era of carefully curated captions and safe statements could be coming to an end. Some believe the truth isn't hidden in sealed court documents or private testimonies. It's right out in the open, maybe even in Melania's own words. Her long-awaited memoir didn't just offer a glimpse behind her public image. It cracked open the door to her complex and often chilling relationship with Donald Trump. What Melania's memoir really reveals about Donald. Just when you think Melania has finished pulling back the curtain, her memoir drops a few carefully chosen lines, enough to raise eyebrows, but not enough to satisfy curiosity. Her portrayal of her marriage to Donald Trump is far from romanticized. She doesn't dive into dramatic tales or emotional bombshells. It's more like two people living side by side, sharing space but often keeping their emotional distance. From what she writes, their relationship seems less about deep connection and more about tolerance, each doing their own thing while coexisting under the same roof. When it comes to sensitive topics like politics or beliefs, Melania makes it clear that Donald lets her have her own opinions. But it's not described as warm or close. It's more neutral, like they don't expect to agree on everything and simply accept that. There's a sense they don't try to change each other. They just allow their separate views without much emotional involvement. She also makes it clear she doesn't worry about how people perceive her husband because of her. In other words, she doesn't feel responsible for his public image or what people think of him. Yet when she tries to describe who Donald really is, her words are carefully polished but somewhat vague. She talks about his drive, passion, and strong personality, but it sounds like she's describing the public figure, not necessarily the private man. So it leaves you wondering, is this really who Donald Trump is, or just the image he wants everyone to believe? Sometimes, what's left unsaid tells the loudest story. What do you think? Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thanks for watching. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe. And be sure to check out the next video popping up on your screen. You never know what you might discover next.